Chosen one, stop for a moment. This interruption is intentional. You were not meant to glide past this as background noise. Something unseen reached into the flow of your day and slowed everything down. Because what you are about to hear carries weight. This message is not dramatic, it is directional. Missing it would not destroy you instantly, but it would quietly redirect your future in ways you don't see yet. And that is why it matters. You have always sensed that your life runs on a different frequency. While others move easily with the crowd, you felt resistance where they found comfort. You questioned yourself for years. You wondered why your path felt lonelier, heavier, more demanding. But the truth is this: you were never designed for ease, you were designed for impact. Heaven does not assign light burdens to those meant to carry light. Right now, you are standing in what looks like an ordinary moment, but spiritually, it is a checkpoint, a pause where heaven asks, are you paying attention? You've been pushing through life on momentum, habit, and survival. But lately, something has shifted. Restlessness crept in. Old methods stopped working. Comfort lost its sweetness. That is not burnout, it is awakening. You've tried to ignore the inner nudge. You told yourself you'd deal with it later, when things were calmer, when you had more clarity, when the cost felt lower. But chosen one, obedience rarely arrives wrapped in convenience. Delay feels harmless, but it slowly trains your spirit to tolerate distance from truth. One delay becomes a pattern, one compromise becomes a lifestyle, and suddenly, what once felt sacred feels negotiable. Don't do it, no matter the price. Don't negotiate with the call. Don't dull your discernment just to feel safe. This is not coincidence. This is divine intervention. The pressure you feel right now is not condemnation. It is invitation. God is not exposing you to shame you. He is alerting you to align you. You are not in trouble. You are in transition. And transitions always test resolve before they release clarity. You may be wondering why this feels hard to believe. That's because belief stretches you beyond logic. You're used to evidence before movement, but faith moves first and understanding follows. That's why this message feels confrontational. It's not attacking you, it's awakening you. The ancient words recorded in Romans still echo today. Chapter 13, verse 11. The hour has already come for you to wake up from your slumber, because our salvation is nearer now than when we first believed. Let that settle. Wake up, not because you were evil, not because you failed, but because sleep has a way of sneaking in quietly. You don't fall asleep suddenly, you drift. And drifting is dangerous for the chosen. You've survived seasons that should have broken you. You endured silence, betrayal, delay, and loss, and yet you're still here. That alone tells you something about your assignment. Darkness does not waste resources attacking those without destiny. The resistance you faced is proof that what you carry matters. But hear this carefully: awareness without action becomes frustration. Conviction without response turns into confusion. God keeps speaking, but at some point, silence becomes the teacher. Not because he left, but because you already know what to do. This is where many chosen ones hesitate. They wait for certainty instead of confirmation. They wait for peace instead of courage. But peace often comes after obedience, not before it. The fear you feel is not a stop sign, it's a signal that something important is at stake. You don't need to announce your next step to everyone. You don't need applause or validation. You just need alignment. Heaven responds to movement, not intention. And even a small step in obedience shifts spiritual atmosphere more than endless contemplation. This is why you're being asked to acknowledge this moment. not to prove anything to others, but to mark it within yourself. When you speak agreement, you anchor resolve. So take a second and respond. Like this message so it doesn't disappear into noise. Share it with someone who's been wrestling quietly. Subscribe if you want to stay connected to what is unfolding. These actions aren't about a platform, they're about posture. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. But you are being summoned out of delay. Comfort will try to keep you numb. Distraction will try to keep you busy. Fear will try to keep you silent. But calling keeps knocking until you either answer or learn to ignore it. Chosen one, you are closer than you think. The discomfort you feel is the sound of chains loosening, not tightening. Don't retreat now. Don't rationalize this away. Let this moment do its work. If this message reaches you, don't scroll past it. Leave a marker. Comment 111 if you are choosing to wake up and move forward. This is your signal, not your sentence. You are not being pushed, you are being invited. Heaven has not closed the door. It is holding it open, waiting for your footstep. Choose awareness over comfort. Choose movement over delay. What you do next matters more than you know. You remember the story, even if you've never seen yourself in it before. Moses standing barefoot before a burning bush, fire dancing without consuming, a holy interruption in the middle of an ordinary day. He wasn't looking for destiny. He was tending sheep, minding routine, surviving quietly after years of disappointment. And then God spoke his name. Moses didn't answer with confidence. He didn't rise with bold declarations. His first instinct was resistance, not rebellion, self-doubt. When God revealed the assignment, Moses immediately looked inward and found what he believed disqualified him. He said he couldn't speak well. His words felt slow, heavy, inadequate. In his mind, eloquence was a requirement for obedience, and since he lacked it, surely God had chosen the wrong man. That excuse sounds spiritual on the surface, but underneath it was fear wearing logic's clothing. You know that feeling well. You've done the same thing, just in modern language. I'm not ready yet. I don't have the personality for this. Others are more gifted. If I step forward, I'll fail. You don't call it unbelief. You call it realism. But heaven hears it the same way. Moses wasn't lying when he said he struggled to speak. That was his lived experience. He had tried before, spoken out of impulse, acted in his own strength, and paid the price. Years of exile taught him to stay quiet, stay small, stay unnoticed. So when God came calling again, Moses assumed the safest response was humility mixed with hesitation. But here's the part many miss: God did not argue with Moses about his weakness. He did not say, "You're wrong. You speak perfectly." Instead, he reframed the source of power. The calling was never dependent on Moses' mouth. It was dependent on God's presence. The Word of God declares in the book of Exodus, chapter 4, verse 12, "Now go. I will help you speak and will teach you what to say." That sentence dismantles every excuse built on insufficiency. God did not remove the assignment because of Moses' weakness. He stepped into it. This is where your life mirrors that ancient moment more than you realize. You have been measuring yourself against the task instead of measuring the task against the one who called you. You keep listing what you lack: confidence, resources, clarity, energy, believing those gaps disqualify you. But the call was never asking you to supply what only God can provide. Like Moses, you've learned caution from past pain. You tried once. You spoke up and were misunderstood. You stepped forward and failed. You trusted and were betrayed. Those experiences trained you to hesitate, to analyze, to protect yourself with silence. Over time, Fear learned to sound responsible. But avoidance does not heal fear, it only makes it stronger. Moses thought his weakness was the problem. In reality, it was the setting. God was not looking for a flawless spokesperson. He was looking for someone willing to stand where he would speak through them. The burning bush was not a spectacle, it was a lesson. The fire was God's power. The bush was Moses' humanity. Ordinary, dry, unimpressive, and yet not consumed. That is your picture. You don't need to become something else to be used. You don't need to erase your limitations. You need to stop assuming they cancel your calling. God's pattern has never changed. He chooses the hesitant, the overlooked, the ones who know their weakness so deeply they won't confuse his power for their own. Your daily life proves this tension. You feel the nudge to speak truth but swallow it to keep peace. You sense a direction change but delay because it feels risky. You know when something is misaligned, yet you stay because it's familiar. Each time, the same thought rises, who am I to do this? Moses asked the same question, and God's response was not a resume boost. It was a promise of presence. There is a difference between humility and hiding. Humility says, I can't do this alone. Hiding says, I won't do this at all. One invites God in. The other keeps him at arm's length. You've been calling your hesitation wisdom, but some of it is fear of exposure. Fear that if you try again, you'll be seen, judged, measured. Moses feared Pharaoh. Yes, but he also feared being seen as insufficient by his own people. He feared returning to the place of his failure. Yet that was exactly where God sent him back. Calling often leads you straight through the place you learn to doubt yourself. Not to shame you, but to heal the narrative. Moses did not become confident overnight. He still trembled, he still argued. But obedience began the moment he stopped letting weakness make the final decision. And that is the shift happening in you now. You are not being asked to be fearless. You are being asked to move while afraid. To speak even when your voice shakes, to trust that God's presence compensates where your strength runs out. Weakness does not delay destiny, avoidance does. Moses eventually stood before kings and nations, not because his speech improved, but because his obedience matured. Power followed movement, clarity followed steps, authority followed surrender. Your story is not behind. It is paused at the same sentence Moses stood in, I will be with you. The question is no longer whether you are capable. The question is whether you will keep using your weakness as a reason to stay where you are or as the doorway through which God steps in. There is a danger that hides in plain sight, especially in the life of someone chosen. It does not come as rebellion. It does not shout defiance. It comes quietly, wrapped in reason, disguised as patience. It whispers, not yet. And over time, that whisper becomes a habit. This is the danger of spiritual delay. You don't say no to God, you say later. Later when you feel stronger. Later when things are clearer. Later when the cost is lower. And because nothing visibly collapses, you assume nothing is lost. But something is always lost in delay: sharpness, sensitivity, momentum. Delay slowly retrains your spirit to tolerate distance from obedience. At first, you feel conviction clearly. It interrupts you. It presses on your chest. It won't let you rest. But when you don't respond, the intensity fades. Not because God stopped speaking, but because your spirit learned how to quiet the signal. What once felt urgent now feels optional. What once felt sacred now feels negotiable. This is how delay works. It never announces consequences up front. You've lived this. You felt prompted to address something but avoided conflict. You sensed it was time to leave but stayed because it was familiar. You knew a habit needed to end but postponed change. Each time, you told yourself it wasn't disobedience, just timing, just wisdom, just waiting. But spiritually, waiting without instruction is not patience, it is hesitation. The prophet Elijah spoke as recorded in the first book of Kings, chapter 18, verse 21. How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. That question isn't harsh, it's clarifying. Elijah wasn't speaking to people who rejected God. He was speaking to people who couldn't decide, people who wanted the safety of neutrality, people who believed but delayed commitment. Wavering is exhausting. It splits your inner life. One part of you leans toward obedience, the other toward comfort, and that inner division drains strength. That's why you feel tired even when nothing looks wrong. That's why peace feels thin. That's why focus feels fragile. You're not weak, you're divided. Delay creates spiritual friction. You may not feel like you're going backward, but you're not standing still either. Spiritually, if you are not moving forward in obedience, something else is shaping you: distraction, compromise, numbness. These don't feel sinful, they feel normal, and that's what makes them dangerous, makes them. God's voice doesn't disappear suddenly. It fades when consistently postponed. The same instruction repeated without response slowly loses volume, not as punishment but as consequence. Clarity is sustained by obedience. Sensitivity is preserved by response. You've wondered why decisions feel heavier now than they used to, why discernment feels slower, why you second-guess more than before. This is not confusion, it is residue from delay. When obedience is deferred, clarity dulls. But here is mercy. The fact that this still unsettles you means the door is not closed. The discomfort you feel is grace at work. Conviction is not condemnation. It is invitation. Heaven is not accusing you, it is calling you out of hesitation. The issue is no longer knowledge. You know what needs to change. You know what needs to end. You know what step has been avoided. The issue is timing, and God always speaks in the language of now. Not because he is impatient, but because delay reshapes the heart. Chosen one, you were not designed to live in constant evaluation. Your spirit was created for alignment. When alignment is delayed, restlessness grows. Not because you're failing, but because something in you knows you are out of position. This section is not asking you to fix everything. It's asking you to stop wavering. One decision restores momentum. One act of obedience reopens clarity. One clear yes silences weeks of internal noise. This is why response matters, not for visibility, but for alignment. Words anchor intention. When you speak decisively, you interrupt hesitation. Comment no more delay. This is not a motivational phrase, that it is a declaration of posture. It means you recognize that postponement has been costing you peace. It means you are choosing responsiveness over comfort. It means you are done negotiating timing with a God who already spoke clearly. No more delay means I move when I hear. It means I don't need perfect conditions to obey. It means I value alignment more than ease. Because destiny doesn't unfold in someday. It unfolds in now. No more delay means you are choosing responsiveness over excuses. You are acknowledging that waiting has quietly drained your clarity, and that obedience postponed has kept you restless. This sentence marks the moment you stop asking when and start accepting now. No more delay means you understand that comfort has been disguising itself as wisdom. You are no longer confusing fear with patience. You are deciding that alignment matters more than perfect timing, and that movement matters more than endless preparation. No more delay means you are reclaiming authority over your inner life. You are done wavering between what you know and what feels easy. By speaking this, you draw a clear line. Hesitation ends here, and obedience begins moving again. There is a moment in every chosen life when mercy does something that feels unsettling. It does not leave, but it steps back. Not in anger, not in rejection, in restraint, like a teacher who stops giving hints during an exam. Not because the student is unloved, but because the lesson must now be demonstrated. You are standing in that kind of moment. Think of mercy like a tide. For a long time, it has carried you even when you were tired, distracted, uncertain. It covered mistakes you didn't even recognize yet. It kept doors from closing too fast. It softened consequences you deserved but didn't receive. And slowly, without you noticing, you began to assume the tide would always rise on schedule. But tides change, not to drown you, but to show you where you're actually standing. When mercy pulls back, it exposes the ground beneath your feet. You begin to feel friction where you once felt flow. Things that used to work effortlessly now require intention. Relationships feel strained. Peace feels thinner. Prayer feels quieter. Not empty, but quieter. And that silence is not absence. It is assessment. This is the season where many misunderstand God. They assume distance when the truth is invitation. Mercy stepping back is not abandonment, it is respect. God honors your ability to choose. He will not force obedience where awareness already exists. Picture a parent teaching a child to walk. At first, hands are everywhere, steadying, catching, correcting. But there comes a moment when the parent loosens their grip. The child wobbles, panic rises, but that release is not neglect. It is trust. Growth requires space. You are in that space now. Mercy has not vanished. It has shifted posture. And the question is not whether God is still good. The question is whether you will move without being carried. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 6, verse 16. Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is and walk in it. Notice the order. Stand, look, ask, walk. Mercy shows the path, but it does not walk it for you. This is where metaphor helps you see clearly. You are like a ship that has relied on the harbor for safety. The harbor protected you from storms, taught you the shape of rest. But ships are not built to stay docked forever. When the ropes loosen, it's not punishment, it's purpose. Remaining docked too long causes rust. You may feel exposed right now, like the covering is thinner, like mistakes carry more weight. That is not because God is harsher, it's because you are being trained to carry responsibility. Authority increases only when dependency decreases. Mercy matures when obedience stabilizes. This is why you feel tension. You are being invited out of spiritual childhood and into stewardship. Another image, think of mercy like training wheels. They kept you upright while you learned balance. But if they never come off, you never learn to ride. The removal feels risky, but it is the only way speed, freedom, and direction become possible. Chosen one, mercy stepping back does not mean grace is gone. It means grace is trusting you. This section matters because misunderstanding this moment leads to fear or worse, retreat. Many turn back when mercy loosens, thinking something went wrong, but nothing went wrong. Something progressed. You are not losing favor. You are gaining responsibility. And here is the encouragement you need to hear clearly. You are not expected to be perfect. You are expected to be responsive. When you move, mercy moves with you again, but now as partnership. not protection. This is why staying connected matters, not to a channel but to reminders, to alignment, to moments like this that help you interpret your season correctly. If these words are helping you understand what you're walking through, like this message so it reaches others standing at the same crossroads. If someone in your life feels exposed, confused, or spiritually strained, share this with them. It may give language to what they're experiencing. And if you want to continue receiving clarity as your calling unfolds, subscribe and stay connected. These are not algorithms to me, they are people choosing awareness. You are not alone in this stretch. You are being trusted with more than before. And trust always feels heavier before it feels empowering. Mercy has not stepped away from you. It has stepped beside you. Now the walk begins. This is the season where you learn to move without being carried. You will still feel God's nearness, but now it comes as guidance rather than rescue. Each step you take builds spiritual muscle, and confidence replaces confusion little by little. You may stumble, but you will not fall away. Mercy is still present, just quieter, allowing your choices to matter more. What feels like exposure is actually refinement, shaping discernment and strengthening your ability to stand. As you walk forward, clarity will return not all at once, but faithfully. With every obedient step, the path brightens. You are not being tested to fail. You are being trusted to rise. By now, you are beginning to sense something that has always been there, but never fully explained. A mark, not visible, not spoken aloud, yet unmistakable in its effects. This is the mark, the spiritual imprint that has been forming over time. You didn't choose it consciously. It was shaped through response, resistance, endurance, and obedience in hidden places. The mark does not appear suddenly. It forms quietly, the way calluses form on working hands. Pressure applied repeatedly. Weight carried longer than expected. Responsibility accepted when retreat would have been easier. Over time, something in you hardens not in bitterness, but in strength. Let's speak practically now, so you can recognize it in everyday life. You know the mark has formed when you notice patterns that don't make sense naturally. You carry responsibility early. You feel conviction quickly. You are deeply affected by misalignment, even when others are comfortable with it. You recover from pain slower, but you emerge wiser. You are not satisfied with surface answers. You can't pretend for long. This is not overthinking. This is imprint. Another indicator is isolation that wasn't chosen but assigned. You didn't separate yourself out of pride. Life separated you for refinement. Certain friendships faded. Certain environments became unbearable. Not because you were better, but because you were changing. The mark demands congruence. What doesn't match it eventually falls away. In daily life, this shows up as tension when you try to fit where you no longer belong. You can still function there, but you feel drained. Your spirit knows you're off alignment before your mind catches up. That awareness is part of the mark. Now comes the harder truth: every mark carries a price. The cost of the mark is misunderstanding. People will misread your restraint as coldness, your boundaries as arrogance, your silence as weakness. They won't see the internal discipline that keeps you steady. And you'll learn not to explain yourself because the mark is not validated by agreement. Another cost is delay. Marked lives often move slower externally while developing faster internally. You watch others advance quickly while you are refined quietly. This can tempt comparison. But speed without depth collapses. The mark builds depth first. There is also the cost of sensitivity. You feel things others ignore. You notice shifts in atmosphere. You sense when something is off. This can be exhausting, but it also makes you trustworthy. Discernment is expensive because it demands responsibility once you see. The Word of God declares in the book of Galatians chapter 6, verse 17, "Let no one trouble me, for I bear on my body the marks of Jesus." Marks are not decoration, they are evidence. They tell a story of endurance, not ease. Now let's move into practical instruction how to steward this mark in everyday life instead of resenting it. First, stop trying to live unmarked. This means you no longer force yourself into spaces that require you to dull conviction to belong. In practice, this looks like choosing integrity over approval, even in small decisions, conversations, entertainment, habits, compromises you use to excuse. Second, adjust your pace. Marked people burn out when they imitate unmarked rhythms. You need rest that restores alignment, not distraction. Silence is not emptiness for you, it is recalibration. Build margin into your life where your spirit can settle. This is not laziness, it is maintenance. Third, learn discerned obedience, not impulsive, not delayed. When you sense a clear nudge, act within a reasonable window. This trains the mark to remain sharp. Obedience strengthens imprint. Delay dulls it. Fourth, accept the cost without dramatizing it. You are not meant to suffer unnecessarily, but you are meant to stop resenting the weight. The mark does not make life harder, it makes life narrower. And narrow paths demand focus, not complaint. Fifth, guard your inner dialogue. The enemy of the marked is not temptation, first it is accusation. Thoughts like, "Why me? This is unfair. I didn't ask for this." When those arise, return to truth. You were entrusted, not punished. In daily terms, this looks like choosing gratitude over comparison, responsibility over resentment, clarity over comfort. Now here is where response matters. You don't comment numbers to prove spirituality. You comment as a conscious act of alignment. Numbers act as markers, reminders of a moment when you chose awareness over drifting. Comment 314 if you recognize the mark forming in your life and you are choosing to carry it with maturity. 314 is not random here. It represents process before position, growth before visibility, depth before distance. This mark will continue to shape you, but only if you steward it intentionally. If you try to escape it, life becomes exhausting. If you accept it, life becomes focused. You are not marked to be isolated forever. You are marked to be effective when it matters. And now you know how to recognize it and how to carry the cost without losing yourself. 314 is your reminder that formation comes before manifestation. It speaks of patience under pressure, of allowing God to finish the work before revealing the result. By marking this number, you affirm that you value depth over speed and purpose over appearance. There comes a point in the journey of the chosen where the struggle is no longer about knowing what is right, but about letting go of what feels safe. This is the quiet battlefield. Few talk about the tension between comfort and calling. Comfort does not look sinful. It looks reasonable. It looks earned. It looks like rest after survival. And that is why it is dangerous at this stage. You have already endured much. You've paid prices others never saw. You've carried weight in silence. Somewhere along the way, comfort began to feel like compensation. A small corner of ease you told yourself you deserved, and perhaps you did. But calling does not negotiate with comfort forever. Comfort says, stay where you are, you've been through enough. Calling says, come higher. There is more entrusted to you. The difficulty is that comfort is familiar. It speaks your language. It knows your wounds. It promises protection from disappointment. Calling, on the other hand, speaks in invitations that feel risky. It offers purpose, not guarantees. Growth, not control. This is why the struggle feels internal now. External battles have quieted, but inner resistance has increased. You are no longer fighting chaos, you are wrestling preference. And preference can be harder to surrender than pain. You see this in everyday life. You sense it when you choose ease over alignment, when you stay silent to avoid tension, when you delay a necessary change because it disrupts your routine. Nothing dramatic happens, but something subtle shrinks. Vision narrows, hunger fades, the fire dims into maintenance mode. Calling does not die in comfort, but it does go dormant. The most sobering truth is this: you can live a good life and still miss a greater assignment. Comfort is not evil. It is just insufficient for what you were marked to carry. This is the point where many chosen ones plateau. They don't fall away, they stabilize. They become responsible, consistent, respectable, and internally restless. They sense there was more, but they can't justify leaving what works. But calling is not concerned with what works. It is concerned with what aligns. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 16, verse 25. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. This is not a call to destruction. It is a call to exchange, to release a smaller life for a fuller one, to surrender control for meaning. Comfort tries to preserve life as it is. Calling transforms life into what it was meant to be. Losing your life does not always mean dramatic sacrifice. Often it means letting go of familiarity, identity attachments, versions of yourself that once protected you but now limit you. It means admitting that what once served you is now constraining you. You've already felt this friction, the sense that your current pace no longer matches your inner growth, that what satisfies others leaves you restless, that you can't fully relax into comfort without feeling a quiet grief. That grief is not ingratitude, it is awareness. Calling always costs comfort first. This does not mean you must live exhausted, deprived, or joyless. It means you must redefine rest. Rest is not avoidance. Rest is alignment. True rest comes when your outer life matches your inner call. Anything else is temporary relief. You are learning this now. Comfort numbs the questions for a while, but they return louder. Calling presses the questions forward until they are answered through movement. The fear you feel is not about failure. It is about loss of control. Comfort allows you to manage outcomes. Calling requires trust, and trust feels unsafe when you've learned survival through self-reliance. But hear this clearly: what you surrender is not your safety, it is your ceiling. God does not strip comfort to harm you. He invites you beyond it because what He has placed in you cannot breathe in confined spaces. You are not being rushed, you are being stretched. This section of your journey is not about dramatic leaps, it is about honest inventory. Asking yourself where comfort has replaced conviction, where routine has replaced obedience, where safety has replaced surrender, and then choosing not emotionally, but deliberately to loosen your grip. You will not lose everything by choosing calling. You will lose what cannot go with you. And what remains will be stronger, clearer, and more aligned. Comfort keeps life manageable. Calling makes life meaningful. You are now mature enough to choose meaning even when it costs ease. That is not punishment. That is promotion. You are not being asked to abandon everything at once. You are being asked to loosen your grip. Each small release makes room for deeper trust. And trust restores the fire that comfort quietly dimmed. This is how calling regains its voice. As you choose meaning over ease, clarity will follow. What once felt heavy will feel focused. What once felt risky will feel right. You are not losing stability, you are exchanging it for alignment that finally lets you breathe. There is a door in front of you now, not the kind made of wood or metal, but the kind that only appears after a long journey of resistance, awakening, delay, and surrender. You didn't notice it at first because it doesn't announce itself loudly. It stands quietly, waiting for a hand that is finally steady enough to open it. This is that moment. You are not standing here by accident. Every section before this has been a narrowing path, guiding you away from noise and into clarity. You've learned why delay costs you. You've recognized the mark on your life. You felt mercy shift, comfort loosen, calling press closer. All of that was preparation not for fear, but for choice. Because destiny never forces itself, it invites. This door remains open not because you are perfect, but because you are willing. Willing to listen. Willing to be honest. Willing to admit that comfort no longer satisfies and delay no longer protects. Willing to step forward even without full certainty. Many people reach this door and turn away not out of rebellion but out of familiarity. They go back to what they know, what they can manage, what feels safe. But you are still here. That matters. Think of this moment like standing at the edge of dawn. Night hasn't fully released its grip, but light is already rewriting the horizon. You could turn back toward the dark because it's familiar, or you could wait and let the light reveal what's next. Both are choices, only one leads forward. Only one. The door does not rush you, but it will not follow you. This is why awareness feels heavier now. You are no longer ignorant. You see clearly enough to be responsible. And responsibility is the threshold between preparation and movement. The Apostle Paul wrote in the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 12 to verse 1, "Let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us." Notice the language. A race marked out, not invented on the spot, not improvised, prepared, assigned, personal. You already have a lane. You already have a mark. What remains is movement. Throwing off what hinders does not always mean dramatic sin. Often it means unnecessary weight habits that slow you, identities that no longer fit, fears that once protected you but now imprison you. You don't curse these things. You thank them for their service, and you release them. Running does not mean frantic effort. It means commitment to direction, one foot after the other, eyes forward. No more circling the starting line. This final section is not a climax of emotion. It is a settling of resolve. You are not being told to do more. You are being invited to align deeper. And alignment is beautiful because it is voluntary. No one drags you through this door. You choose it, quietly, fully, with dignity. If this message has walked with you, if it has named things you felt but couldn't articulate, then consider what you do next as a symbolic act, not a command. To like this message is like placing a stone at the doorway, a small marker that says, "I was here, and I recognized the moment." To share it is like holding the door open for someone else who is still approaching, unsure but searching. To subscribe is like choosing to keep walking this road with awareness, allowing future reminders to meet you when clarity needs reinforcement. And to comment is like writing your name in the margin of the story, not for attention, but for remembrance. These are not obligations, they are gestures. Each one is a way of saying yes without noise. You are not proving faith, you are practicing presence. Chosen one, the door is still open. That is grace, but doors exist to be walked through. And when you do, The room beyond will not look like chaos or punishment. It will look like space, breath, direction, the kind of peace that only comes after decision. You don't need to rush, but don't turn back. This ending is not an end at all. It is a threshold. And thresholds are sacred because they separate who you were from who you are becoming. Step forward not dramatically, not loudly, but honestly. The next chapter has already been prepared. All that remains is your hand on the door. You don't need applause when you step through this door. The shift will be quiet, almost invisible to others, but unmistakable to you. Something will settle inside. The noise will thin out. Direction will feel simpler, even when the road ahead remains demanding. As you move forward, you will notice fewer explanations are needed. You will stop justifying obedience and stop apologizing for alignment. What once felt heavy will feel intentional. What once felt lonely will feel protected. This is how peace confirms that a choice was right. Carry this moment gently. You don't rush destiny, you walk with it. Each step you take now builds continuity, not chaos. And one day you'll look back and realize this was the moment everything quietly changed. You don't need to decide anything right now. Some messages are not meant to be answered immediately, they are meant to be carried. Let them sit with you. Let them surface later in quiet moments, when noise fades and honesty rises. What truly belongs to you will stay. What doesn't will fall away without effort. If these words helped you see something more clearly, you're free to let them travel. Sharing is not about agreement, it's about offering a light you didn't create but recognized. Someone else may be standing where you once stood, needing language for what they feel but can't yet name. If this helped you, it may help them too. And if parts of this didn't resonate, that's okay. Not every sentence is meant for every season. You don't have to keep everything. Just hold on to what touched you, what felt quiet but true. Truth doesn't shout, it settles. You're allowed to move slowly with what you've heard. Reflection is not resistance. Silence is not rejection. Sometimes growth looks like sitting with a thought until it becomes part of you, reshaping how you walk, speak, and choose. This ending is intentionally open because your story is still unfolding. Nothing here demands belief or action, only awareness. What you do with that awareness is yours alone. Keep what nourishes you, release what doesn't. Trust yourself enough to know the difference. And if one day you remember these words at the exact moment you need them, then they've already done their work.